I'm Julia Hatmaker. I'm the Deputy Editor of Place Northwest, and I'll be guiding today's conversation.
And I think it's just understanding how green infrastructure and nature-based solutions can be really multifunctional, and that's when I think you'll get the most benefits.
I think actually bringing nature into our built environments add value as well. Creating attractive streets means that people want to live and work in these places, so we mustn't forget about the fact that it is adding monetary value, economic value, as well as the environmental and social value that we talked about.
We are fully committed to the net zero carbon agenda as a broader strategic piece, but actually on a more individual development and location by location basis, looking at biodiversity and how we can improve climate resilience within the city is really important to us. There's a massive social benefit to green spaces, and our customers really benefit from being in spaces which have got natural materials in them, not just green natural materials but natural finishes, and we're really seeing that come through in our feedback.
People do have this innate connection with nature, and it's actually really important for people to have that connection. And when people don't have that connection or don't have that access to green space, it obviously has a major impact on people. And actually, people are now starting to understand that that's a key significance, of key importance.
We do have to make it everyone's business, and it goes back to, doesn't it, we set at the beginning really, just the multiple ways this benefits everybody. So it does mean, absolutely hardwiring it into our policy and strategy, which we're doing at a GM level, which is great, but that also needs to be hardwired then across local authorities down to a neighbourhood level.
I think it's interesting the way people are now seeing infrastructure as more than just roads and utilities. It is about multifunctional infrastructure, and the green infrastructure plays a really key part in that. One of the schemes that we're working on at the moment with Manchester City Council is the redesign and refurbishment of the Fallowfield Loop line on the Yellow Brick Road. I think it's about 15 kilometres of cycleway, but we're not approaching it as it's just a cycleway. We need to just resurface it, tidy it up, provide some signage, and allow people to move along it straightforwardly. It is about placemaking, and we've got biodiversity interventions, SUDS interventions, looking at forest schools along the route, play equipment. So it is, it's a real piece of kind of social community infrastructure. All of us as individuals, whether in businesses, we've seen change in the approach from people within the local authority. I think everyone is kind of appreciating the need to change direction and is quite passionate about that. And now it's just a case of getting the kind of machine working in the same way.
And I think it's really interesting actually that the market is ahead of sort of policy and is actually driving things much quicker than policy is at the moment, which is an interesting thing. We see, particularly on commercial developments, a real appetite from tenants, from investors, from funds about ESG.
If you look at any brochure when they're selling a development, unless it's in a city, if you look at any brochure, what they don't just show you is the bricks and the mortar. They stand back and they show you a pond, kids cycling, kids kicking football. They show activity in that green space. They know subconsciously that it adds value.
To go from that sort of 10% responsible developer to everyone having to do it, firstly you've got to have that joined up, coordinated, master planned approach, and then that has to go into policy. Otherwise, people they don't have to do it.
I think we need to look at the role of local authority planning. I think local authority planning has got to be given probably more resource, but more ability to take a more strategic approach.
And there's a real need for resources to enable that to happen and to really help equip local authorities who need to be absolutely, our stewards for place and are critical to be able to connect, as we describe, across public realm with development to make sure it's not just that piecemeal approach.
All these large master plans, they need the funding, so it's still not as easy as it adds so much value that it's a no-brainer. You still have to go cap in hand.
We do think that the market will catch up. I think people will pay for better quality, lower carbon, more sustainable spaces.
We recognise there's demand from local businesses and local organisations for local offsetting that will deliver all the multiple benefits that we've talked about today, not just carbon but all of the wider health. And with the local plans, there's going to be that net zero new build requirement and offsetting if you can't meet that. And with biodiversity net gain, we'll have similar for habitat banking and biodiversity offsetting. So yeah, we're prioritising getting something prepared and ready to capitalise on those opportunities locally within GM, so that funding and offsetting funding can stay within Greater Manchester.
I think we're all fortunate. Manchester and GM are a bit ahead of the game, actually, I think, in terms of the consulting on the local plan next year, I think. And a lot of what we're talking about, word has it, is coming in. You know, operational carbon target with biodiversity net gain target. So it's all coming, and the policy will come.
There's a lot of priorities at the moment, aren't there? So there's that environmental, there's the social agenda, there's building affordable housing. There's lots of things going on and lots of priorities, and it is very difficult to balance those priorities and get that right, while still being able to afford a scheme and make a scheme viable. It is very, very, very challenging. I think, for me, the first thing is just clever design and being a bit innovative and intelligent about what you do.
The local authorities can play an important role in bringing different groups round the table, setting the priorities, setting the master planning approach, and then bringing those different partners around the table.
A lot of the conversations I have where people aren't even going there because they just assume, with the knowledge they've got, it's going to be too expensive, and they just assume it's not really going to be doable. So I just think there's something about giving more people as landowners, as people who own these buildings or developing, actually that knowledge to go, they can, it's possible.
It's also about being inventive and being innovative, and in how how you incorporate green infrastructure into the city or into towns and the urban environment. One of the projects I worked on in the past, and as part of the Connecting Leicester initiative, which was in Leicester City Centre, and it was pioneered by the City Mayor. The whole initiative is all about trying to connect these peripheral residential areas to the city centre to stop people travelling into the city by car and causing congestion, and also to incorporate health and wellbeing benefits and walking and cycling. And one of the schemes I was involved in was called Mill Lane, and it connected the Narborough Road residential area to the city centre. The scheme involved actually turning an existing road into a linear park, taking out all the positive drainage, because previously all the rainwater went on the carriageway and then into the gullies and into the adjacent River Soar, which caused flooding downstream. So we created took out all the gullies, created rain gardens, and we saved the equivalent of 2.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water going into the river every year. When it came to the actual the carriageway, because we had to break up the carriageway to create this linear park and rain gardens, we then used some of that crushed hardcore as part of the drainage medium for the rain gardens.
And even it's a little bit boring, but things like a lot of the time we can't put trees in the ground because there's a lot of utilities in there. But actually I know the Ignition's looking at how do you build trees with shallow roots, so that simple things like that could make a massive impact, because I wonder how many trees haven't been put into urban landscapes because there's a fibre cable underneath the pavement, probably hundreds, thousands. Actually, so you can overcome things like that, with taking challenges away. So you go from big sort of thinking, don't you, and strategic stuff, to the minutiae of how you plant a tree in a footpath.
But I think what we're really going to need to do collectively to move things as quickly as we need to do is collaborate. And I don't mean just collaborate kind of within the design team, but cross-discipline, within the discipline, us collaborating with other engineers, sharing our understanding and knowledge. QS is collaborating over how to cost different solutions, and developers collaborating over methods or methodologies that they've adopted as well.
This is key to how we live, it's key to our survival, it's key to our health and well-being, and it has to be central to absolutely everything we do, not just an add-on on the side. And I think we have to therefore redesign, to be honest, a huge amount of our current structures and decision making to recognise that. And until we do that, I think we're just going to be tinkering a little bit on the edges.